What up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Blacktop Podcast, episode 45. Christian's back. We're two-manning it tonight. Ruben had a meeting, but is what it is. How you doing, cousin?
I'm pretty good. I'm good. Nothing else.
Nice. Me too. I'm just a big chiller. I mean, you know, got the
DJ
yeah,
DJ graduated.
I got that big D, the
Yes.
biggest D in life. But
All
yeah,
right.
again, like I told Christian, I don't think I really had like the finality of it really hit. I think that'll probably be once I'm done like my post grad program, but we'll take it. First
Yes.
step.
We will.
But let's get right into it, y'all. So we got a pretty decent docket looking for today. We're going to talk about the finals, obviously. Then we got a couple coaching hires to go over, the future of Chris Paul. Well, we'll sprinkle a little bit of LeBron to Dallas in there, and then we're going to end off by which something that I'm not going to lie is probably the thing I'm most looking forward to in the off season, uh, the FIBA World Cup. There have been some few Team USA commits, and it's been a little surprising to say the least, but yeah, let's get right into it. So, the NBA Finals, 2-1. Miami, or they're in Miami, game four. Before we get into like the good and the bad kind of stuff, what's just been your overall feeling towards the finals, Chin?
I think I I've been excited about this matchup, and I would be more excited, of course, if Boston went through. But I think I was excited just about the fact that like whoever came out of the East, there was going to be a new person, coveted with a ring at the end of the season. So I'm really excited about like this matchup, particularly. And I think I've talked about it on the podcast before how like these teams more so than not are like homegrown or like really develop a culture to really get where they are. Obviously, Miami bringing in people and kind of developing that way, still very homegrown in a sense where they've developed this culture of playing this almost like hustle ball, like, you know, something like 40% of their players are undrafted at this point. Um, like, and then obviously with Denver, them being like a homegrown core for the last how many years? Like 5, 6 years, like something outrageous like that at this
Mm.
point. Like I think Jokic has been in the league for a minute, but I think I've been excited about this series, and I think a lot of people expected it to be boring, but there's been a lot of great moments so far. I mean, the biggest thing or takeaway I've had so far, at least from what I've seen and watched when I can, is just seeing Jokic and Murray put up a triple double like simultaneously in a finals game. I don't think that's ever been done from what I've seen in NBA finals history. From what
Oh
I
yeah.
Yeah, I saw that statistic somewhere and I was like, damn, that's it's actually crazy. And then they both had like 30-point triple doubles and they had 10 assists each. Like they pretty much ran the game, like at
Oh,
that point.
100%. Yeah. I remember just to like give a little anecdote or whatever. Game three. Oh man, I thought Miami came out. They came out good. I think, you know, they were able to like give a few punches, which I think, because I feel like the storyline so far has been Denver's comfortably controlled for three quarters, and it's that fourth quarter that really makes or breaks them. And I think game three was an indication of like, there's, I'm not saying there's a problem in Miami, but you never want to go into the fourth down like 16 or 18 or whatever it was. But yeah, man, totally agree. This finals is this is good shit.
Yeah. And I just think when your two best players on your team are playing at that caliber, it's kind of like lights out unless, a team like Miami can respond. And I just don't think obviously, they have the caliber to play at that level. Because yeah, I mean, like if they're contributing 60 points on their own, assisting to at least 40, like that's the whole game, and if your player that's like 100% your player can give you. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I want to believe in Miami, and I think this series will stretch out to six personally. Um, just based on how well Miami has been able to persevere and adjust to, the hardest teams they've had to play. Um, but then again, I feel that Denver's playing on a whole other level. Ruben made a good comparison of comparing them to that Toronto 2019 team. And I think like I've actually been pondering on that a lot. It's starting to make a lot of sense, honestly.
No doubt. I mean, they got the point guard correlation off rip. So yeah, and I mean, I feel like the whole series can be summed up into Game Three's ending, to where, you know, call a spade a spade. Denver's a heavy favorite for this matchup, and one, you see why, but then two, you saw how also, even though Denver can go in with all this firepower, with all this momentum, there's still a chance with Miami, and it's to the fact, the old adage of you got to play like a perfect game. That's like your one shot to even be in the race. So, I mean, to get right into it, let's just get. I think yeah, let's dive in with Miami. I think the good has been the zone. First of all, has been somewhat effective, and as much as we say Denver's really won the first three quarters of every game, the fourth quarters have been big because I mean, off rip, if we look at this will also go into later with Denver's, I think something they need to improve on. They're -10 in game one, -11, and +1 when it comes to the fourth quarter. With that fourth quarter being a little bit of a, it could have been done though, but they pushed it a bit. But yeah, I mean, fourth quarters obviously that's the winning time. They've proven this entire playoff run that they really show that ability to, one, take the punches, which goes with that whole mindset of being the heavy underdog. But then two, when it's time to make the money, that's when they're showing out. And one guy I really want to give praise to is Bam, because there's an argument to say he's been the second best player in this entire series, which obviously number one is that big man from Serbia. But Bam overall, just the aggressiveness, and I think the willingness to, one, play like the pure center that he can be able to guard multiple positions, but then two, I think seeing him kind of, really live up to that name, Bam. He's a guy that's been, Miami's best player by far. But, we'll get into some of the bad later. But, again, Miami's got to play a perfect series, not even just like one single game. And, there's things to be done, but I'm feeling it too. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that Bam statement. Obviously, it shows in the stats, but I think the one ridicule he had been getting during the season and even going into the playoffs before, everything started to unfold is that he wouldn't be good enough offensively. And
Mm,
right now he's averaging 23 points per game. I think that's the most you can ask from him. I'd say in a lot of ways, I'm not saying it's overachieving for Bam, but he's never been the player to come to light. I think in this moment, it's always had to be Jimmy kind of being that person for Miami. And I think it's just the fact that Denver is just ripping it up that they're kind of overshadowed by like how good they're actually doing,
mm,
right? Like
no doubt.
Denver's just in a echelon of their own, it seems, right now in terms of how they're playing. Yeah.
100%. And I mean, you know, I think let's get into the bad then. One thing I think has been not necessarily a huge cause for concern, but when things are so marginal in the finals, it comes down to like, who gets the most loose balls, stuff along that nature, among that nature. I think you gotta let Bam and Jimmy play like realistically, or not even. I don't even want to use the word realistically, but in a perfect world, they'd be on like their KD stuff when he went on that run against the Bucks and the Nets, where they've got to play like virtually every minute. And there's tricks of the trades. I don't know if you heard the recent PG podcast where it talks about how Steven Adams would purposely make himself bleed so they can get a timeout. There's ways to navigate uh, being able to let Bam and Jimmy get rest outside of just their regular, you know, 2 minutes off here, 1 minute of rest there. So I think that's a big thing. You got to let Bam and Jimmy rock out for virtually the entire game. And then I think the biggest thing of all, though, as much as I love, again, I spoke to Bam's praises, I think there's a lot of moments throughout the series where he's settling. Be it the costly turnovers to an extent at times, and not even just like the classic idea of a turnover, but I feel like when you settle for a really bad like offensive possession, specifically the parts where Bam's settling for the mid range, even when, the worst is when he's holding it for like 4 to 5 seconds and Denver's been able to cover most of the reads and then bam, settles for, a midi. I think that's just as bad as a turnover to an extent. So I think that if there's one thing Miami really needs to look to is just rely on the guys that got you there, Bam and Jimmy, but particularly with Bam, I think as much as his offensive game showed, which has had to come out, I think, out of necessity of the fact that the role players are kind of, it's not that they're terrible, but they're kind of sinking to, I think, a median. And with
Yeah.
that, that goes into the whole, they got to do what they got to do to really win this thing. So I think it's just a matter of Bam being more of a pure passer. I think there are times where he's like very, very in tune with getting to the bucket and not necessarily like looking to be that, that two-way on the offensive in the sense of being able to make the right read as well as imposing a force, which, you know, we've shown Bam's ability to, but I think there's just a little middle ground that needs to get there. So I think the biggest my main adjustment needs to be the Bam. I think just letting the game come to him. I think he forces a lot of offense at times, which has come out of necessity of again the fact that the role players, which have been like a huge, huge thing throughout this entire run, have just been kind of role players.
Yeah. I would pretty much agree to that completely. And I think to even play off of the idea of, you know, giving them all the minutes to play in the game, but also kind of understanding the tiredness that that comes from. I think those shots really kill their team because if you really think about those, those middies that he's taking, like instead of it being off a foul where they have to inbound the ball, like every time he misses one of those, it gives Denver the chance to, go up the floor. And I think people underestimate how fast of a team Denver can be. Obviously, Jokic is an anomaly within that team, but you look at Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon. I mean, Bruce Brown has been like a huge player for them during this series. Like they're all players who are explosive and can make their own basket, especially off the transition. Especially even Michael Porter Jr., even if he's known more as a spot up shooter on this team, he definitely can get his bucket on the inside. And I think Miami has to respond that same way, playing on the inside, playing for fouls, so they can get that rest, but also get those easier points. Because I do agree, even though Bam is getting his points, the times I have honestly watched like this series, and it's not been a lot considering, just how busy of a guy I am. Like Bam is always taking those middies. Like it's a little it's a little uncomfortable, like in terms of how much he actually takes them when you consider that he's supposed to
Definitely.
be your big man. I wouldn't say Jokic is like not a plus defender. He's obviously proven this series that he can defend the bigger men. Pause. Uh, but I don't know even know why I said pause. But what I'm trying to say is I think he has to challenge Jokic on the inside. Yeah.
100%. But I mean, yeah, there's just things that need to be made. And, I think if there's one thing, I think as much as the experience that Eric Spoelstra possesses, I think Michael Malone's game for everything. You know, I think he's shown the ability, or not even the ability, just the overall presence of being a coach that belongs in the finals. And, you know, one, he definitely deserves to be it. But two, I think you've seen this whole Denver's kind of flown under the radar in the sense where if we look to it, Nikola Jokic has one conference finals appearance. But if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure that was the bubble one, and that alone is, you it came a little short, but that's a legendary run. Coming back
Yeah.
down from 2-3-1 deficit. So I mean, Denver is Michael Malone and just the Denver Nuggets are overall game for anything I think Eric Spoelstra has planned. And let's segue into the good for Denver. Unless you got any other thing you want to bring up when it comes to Miami's like hardships.
I mean, I'm kind of just looking at these box stats, seeing these averages, and I think one of the anomalies that just stands out for me on their team, and I think this will be an adjustment they will be making and probably are continuing to make, but Max Strus is shooting a terrible clip of 21 from three on seven and a half attempts. Like, I think that's something that's been shooting them out the game because when you really look at the box stats too, again, numbers that just don't lie. They're far behind in the field goal percentage. And I think what's keeping them in the game, like I mentioned, is just getting those free throws, getting to the line. Um, and so I think they have kind of identified this themselves as a team that can get hot by three ball, but I think this is something that has been iterated through the years. that this sort of Golden State like basketball of like living by the three. Not every team is built to play it every game, and I think it's just the fact that they I think have relied on Max Strus to be that guy at some points. When he's kind of, coming on the second rotation, for example. I think that is like a way you can really shoot yourself out of a game. I mean, I've seen it with the Boston Celtics too, relying on, like Jason Tatum coming off the screen and taking the three ball every time. Like, and you see how many possessions you lose off that. I think I'm not trying to sound like old head in basketball, saying I watch a lot of basketball or whatever, but I just think, and it's something I've already iterated too. My bad, but I just think they need to play more by the two and less by the three, a little bit more at least to at least be in the game a bit more.
100%. Yeah, I mean, Charles Barkley says it best. He just had an appearance on this other podcast I listened to, New Heights with the Kelsey brothers, but he was saying I think a lot of teams are constructed by this whole idea of having guys like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, but they don't really have them. But yeah, I think that's something that'll just regress to more of a mean, and that would be
Yeah,
increase, which is good. But yeah, I think Miami's just lost a little bit of the things that have got them here to an extent, and I don't think it's anything they can't come back from. But yeah, let's start
yeah,
off with the good for Denver though.
good for Denver. Well, I don't know, man. Like, I think there's a lot of things that can be said about them. I think the biggest thing I had to like that you just had to mention is just how good Jokic and Murray are playing. Like when you talk about how good they're playing, it's like something to be expected of them because they are the star players. But I think just looking at these box scores is pretty disgusting because these are like 2K numbers. Like to shoot above 50%, shoot 40 from three, on like such a ridiculous clip, and then be averaging things like 14 rebounds, almost 10 assists from both of them per game. Like those are stats you don't get from players unless, they're aiming for that championship. So I think they're just doing everything right. Because you then go down to the next player, Aaron Gordon. He's the only other person averaging double digits. So it really, I think, speaks a lot to how much they're doing on this team. Um, and I'm not saying this team without like that's around them isn't doing their job because they definitely are, but I think they've really like continued to show why they've been the best team in the West. Um, I think that's just the obvious. That's like something it's I don't know. These numbers are ridiculous. That's all I have to say.
Total agreement here. I mean, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are. I think, who would you say is like a perfect fit with each other duo wise? And if you think about it, I don't know if there's really a lot of people you could say are better than Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic as like, not even just like bucket for bucket. Because like if you like on paper, if you just put Luca and Kyrie, just to like kind of bring them into discussion a little bit, I don't think
Right.
they, then numbers wise, you'd go with Dallas. But when you just think about the fit and how they play off of each other, how that two-man game is probably one of like the craziest to stop. I don't think there's a lot that can really be in that realm of Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic.
No, I think that's like I think at this point you have to consider when you compare duos, like you have to then look to the all-time great duos because
Mm,
there's no duo in the league right now I could confidently say is better. Like I would not put Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown ahead of them. That would just be foolish. I wouldn't put Joel Embiid and James Harden. Like the teams that are actually like got their duos and they like made it far, like none of these teams, like Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, if you consider that a duo, I would not put them over him. Like I think they just fit in such a way that is like catastrophic to other NBA teams that have to go up against them because it's just the fact that they're dishing out at such a high rate, like averaging like almost 20 assists combined. That's that's like the whole game, like I mentioned before.
I mean, let me read off this stat here. I saw in Stat News today, which was crazy. So I'm gonna give you two sets of stats. It's going to be points per game, rebound per game, and assist per game. And there's two factors here. I don't know if you saw this one, but okay. First one is 53.6 points per game, 21.3 rebounds per game, 6.5 assists per game. And then the second one is 59.3 points per game, 20.7 rebounds per game, and 19.3 assists per game. Now, that second one is Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Who do you
Yes.
think that first one is, Christian?
It's got to be some ridiculous duo. Okay, it's not. I think it's an all-time great duo. And if I had to guess, honestly, 51, you said?
So just to read off the first duo stats again,
Yeah.
it's 53.6 points per game, 21.3 rebounds per game, and 6.5 assists per game.
Why do I think this is Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen?
Oh,
No,
honestly, when you look at the numbers, I can see that, but
yeah, like
yeah,
I
yeah.
could see like 30 from Michael, 20 from Scottie,
But
but is it
I'll
Kobe and
give you,
Shaq? No,
yeah, this is
it's
Kobe.
Kobe and Shaq.
This is Kobe
That's
and Shaq's
insane.
like numbers from their first like finals together, which man, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Whew, that's some generational stuff right there. And I'm not gonna lie, not even just to like kind of take the conversation out of the finals, but when you look at like the future of Denver, they're set. Because I mean,
They are.
you got majority of your core locked up on long-term deals. You got Nikola Jokic, obviously, who I think is a player that I feel like Jokic when he's like 30 to 31 is gonna be. I don't want to use the word better because he's already so good, but I can see him. You know, we've seen the center position to where it's not like a point guard or a shooting guard, a wing position where, you know, young men rule the day, but you know, grown men, old man strength is a thing, and I think Jokic is only going to get better. But even just to bring it back to the finals now, a guy like Christian Braun or Brown, I think they were saying that's how you say it on the actual thing, but I always said Braun. But anyways, man, Jokic said it best. Christian Brown won them that game three. I think it was what? I think it was like 15 points and 17 minutes, something along those lines. And not only that, there were a lot of hustle buckets, and I think a lot of them came in his ability to get in passing lanes, but to also rebound the ball effectively. And because, man, that was, it's showing why I think as bad as KCP and MPJ have been to an extent to look at the wing depth specifically, Christian Brown's been able to prove why he's a winner at every level, you know, high school, college, and now potentially professionally. So yeah, I just want to highlight that for sure.
No, it's a good highlight. I mean, don't mean to bring up the one page that's in front of me again, but this guy's averaging 83% from the field right now in
Mm.
this playoffs, or sorry, in this finals. But you know, that's on 4 attempts, sure, but like you look at KCP, he's averaging 30% on 5 attempts. Like he's really, I think, you know, I think I've seen it too. Like my dad the other day was watching I think it was game two. He's like, "Who the fuck is this kid?" You know, like on this white kid on the court, and I'm just like, I don't fucking know. It's Christian Braun, and he's just like he gets the ball and he you know he makes a difference on the floor, and I think those are like the types of players you kind of need at this point in the playoffs. Like you kind of saw it in GP2 last year, you know, where with the limited minutes you get, obviously it's different with Christian Braun. It's more of an offensive thing, but it's just those like kind of like difference makers that really like push the team to excel at the very end. But yeah,
100%, man. Yeah. Ooh, just the fact that he's a rookie and then they got another dude, Peyton Watson. I think he's looking like he could be really, really good. So, man, as great as Denver already is, I think there's an avenue to where they can get even better. But I mean,
100%.
everything has its pros and cons. I think just to point something out for the Denver Nuggets, 5 for 28. That is Kentavasius Caldwell Pope and Michael Porter Jr.'s combined stat from three, which isn't looking too dicey. And I think not only that, but fourth quarter execution's been a huge thing, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of plus minus. Game one, -10. Game two, -11. Game three, you saw them finally won a fourth quarter, but again, that little that quarter has like some things to touch on for sure. So I think as great, or not even just say as great, but man, it's crazy to think that Denver is still looking this good with the fact that two of their best, if not their two best wings, are playing kind of like dog doo doo.
Yeah, I think because it's kind of been like the theme of the game where Michael Porter Jr. has been that consistent guy getting you like two, three, four threes a game, and
Mm.
he's been that person reliable on the wing. Um, and yeah, it really speaks again to how their star players are playing, how other people are stepping up, like Bruce Brown and Christian Braun, and Aaron Gordon has just been consistent all year. Um, but yeah, it is insane that like your two kind of core 3 and D guys are kind of swamping it up, and they're still winning these games.
Yeah, and I think to at least sing something to the praise of Michael Porter Jr. despite his lackluster finals. It's I think it's been the fact you've seen him buy into that role of being more of the support rather than the guy that's gonna you know that's gonna shoot the ball every chance he gets. He's been a willing rebounder, which at 6'11", not only just something he should probably be, but just the fact he's buying into that is I think a big plus. And then overall, he's shown the ability to at least be what's the word, serviceable on defense. I'm not saying he's locked down or anything, but he's shown the ability to be serviceable. But when you're getting paid $100+ million, you got to be great. And Michael Porter Jr.'s, it's incredible how great Denver have looked despite like his hardships. But yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Mm.
I think he just got the frame for it. I think I'm not saying he doesn't have an excuse to do well defensively, but I think he has definitely come to his own to like at least be a solid guy on the floor. And not, I wouldn't say he's ever been a liability, but I'd say he's at least shown up on defense this time around.
No doubt. I
Yeah,
mean, just to put a cherry on top of it, do you what was your initial prediction?
of him as a defensive player.
No, no, of just the overall series.
Oh, um, I honestly thought it was, and I think it's still possible. I thought it was gonna be a gentleman's sweep, 4-1. Um, I think it's still possible. I also I either had 4-1, 4-2 for Denver. I did expect, I think, in terms of just the experience and amount of not hardships, but the amount of that this team has gone through, this Denver Nuggets team. I didn't expect anything less from Nikola Jokic specifically. Um, and I think for even an 8 seed to make it all the way to the finals was like, you know, a glorious moment to see in NBA history. But I don't know if there's an underdog story to be told here. But I'm not a non-believer. I just think, you know, Jokic is finally going to, I just think it's about time he's going to get his flowers. Like, and these MVPs are going to make sense.
Mm, best player in the world right now, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Man,
I can't I've been saying Giannis is the best player like in the NBA. I've been swearing by it, but I think after this run, like I think Giannis, I mean, I'm not saying Giannis is, anything short, but I think he's got something to prove now. Like this is like the new standard for best player in the NBA now.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm ready for next season, man. Even though this season has been fucking amazing.
I'm ready for next season too.
Hey,
Fucking
man,
hell.
shit.
Yeah.
Hey, let's get to it. But I mean, is there anything else y'all want to touch on for the finals?
No, I mean, who do you think like what do you think is going on next game? Like do you see anything different happening? Like do you have any predictions?
I think I want to hold. I'm holding on to the faith. I think Miami's gonna bounce back. I think that's gonna be the overall kind of narrative for this series. I think it's just gonna be each team throwing their punches, each team taking their punches, and whoever is just able to, really execute down the stretch is going to win this thing, which is why I like Miami in 6 still. But we'll see what
Damn,
happens.
Miami in 6.
And I said Bam would be MVP.
Jeez. That
So
is like some 2K, that's some 2K simulation stuff. I've seen 2K simulations where Bam is still in the Heat and he wins Finals MVP every like he always develops into like a 94 overall player.
hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
I believe in Bam. I'm not gonna lie, pound for pound, I think Bam's the best defender in the league right now. When it comes to the ability to guard all five, I don't know if anyone's is really better than Bam.
The only player I'd maybe put up against him is Giannis, but even making that comparison, is good enough. I think to say Bam is up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, this has just been a beautiful series. I'm sad to see it end, but I'm excited to see the conclusion of it. But moving on from there, we got some coaching hires. We've had a few so far that we talked about. Adrian Griffin getting the Bucks job. Fuck. Well, oh shit. Nick Nurse going to Philly. Holy, big brain fart there. My bad.
He made Doka
To the
to the
Rockets,
Rockets.
yeah. And now we gotta add Monty Williams to Detroit. How you
Oh,
feeling about this hire, Chin?
I think Monty Williams is like it's interesting because he's been almost put in two different lights, like in the last few seasons. Like I think that first season where they initially came into the finals against the Bucks, Monty Williams was praised as this coach that was like turning around the Suns culture and like their future was looking bright. And then this past season, they bring in Kevin Durant mid-season, and it's almost like he was kind of looked at like Steve Nash was looked at. Um, I'm not saying he was, ridiculed on the level. Steve Nash, I don't even know if deserves a job anywhere,
Hey
respectfully.
man, he gave that
Um,
Toronto job.
but I think it's a good thing for Detroit, just considering, the sort of pedigree he has in the last few seasons. I think it brings a lot of relevance to their sort of, I guess, lack of culture for the most part. Like, I wouldn't say they're like lacking an identity. It's more so that they're seeking an identity, like with the young core that they have. I think they need someone who knows what winning basketball is. It's almost like bringing in Coach Carter. It's like,
Holy shit!
okay, that's
Whoa!
okay,
I'm
hold
not gonna
on. Let
lie,
me
I kind of fuck with that.
like
Yo,
it's
that's
just like if you want to play winning basketball, you got to trust the coach and you got to like you're all young and you got to just like trust like that he knows how to win. I don't really know, obviously how well it's actually going to translate, but it's just the fact he's been winning, and I think Detroit obviously has been losing. It's like they're what is it Richmond High? That's school
yeah.
or like
Damn. I,
like they're the bottom tier team with like one of the like most respected coaches in the league, like from the last few years.
shit, that's a hilariously great comparison. Man,
I
I'm gonna watch
I
Coach Carter
I,
tonight off
I
that.
just don't think I must say though, like I just so I don't get any flame. I don't know if he's Coach Carter level. Like if you brought a Coach Carter, that team's going to the finals. But
Yeah, Whew.
yeah, but
That's a clip and a half right there. Oh my goodness. Wait, oh man, yeah. Oh, let me get back on track here. Monty Williams to Detroit, I think, is an A+ hire.
yeah,
I think you've looked at a lot of players to where they reach stardom really fast, and then they just as fastly like fall off. We've seen a lot of guys that are like they should look so good in their early years, and then once they kind of whether they get the keys or just take on a bigger role, they start to like kind of deflate a bit. Monty
yeah,
Williams, I think, is similar to that arc to where he reached a stardom so quickly as a head coach. Because I mean, even if we look back to the bubble, that was a great run, 8-0. Still missed it, the playoffs, but I think Monty himself even said this isn't the same Phoenix Suns of old with the whole like, D Book dropping 70 and still losing. Not to throw a
yeah.
subliminal or not a subliminal like a stray or whatever. And
No,
I
he
think you
deserves
could
every
say the
stray.
same with Monty to where, yeah, crazy as stray, but I think it's the same with Monty to where he looked so good early on. As not to say he's bad, but it's crazy growing pains. And I
Yeah.
think Phoenix, when it came to like the whole Chris Paul acquisition, is when you really started to see that, oh, they're gonna move the timeline up. So I think this is all to say that Monty Williams, I think he's going to a better situation than he did in Phoenix, if we're being real.
Uh-huh.
And I think the ability to build out that roster, and which already has a crazy good foundation, not to like bring a like what's the word, like a rerun of last episode, but Ruben and I were talking about Bob Myers potentially going there, and
Mm.
man, the Detroit, just anything to do with the Detroit Pistons right now is it's a hot commodity for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. So I'm excited to see how Monty builds this team out. I really hope that Detroit bags one of these wings in the upcoming draft, just to really potentially give a sense of finality to the pieces of the rebuild. But yeah, this is gonna be. I'm excited for this.
Yeah.
Next.
I yeah, I no, sorry, yeah. I would say like the only last thing I have to say, it's very comparable, I think in hindsight, now that I'm really looking at it. Not in every way, but I think it's very comparable to when Brad Stevens started coaching the Boston Celtics. Like
Mm.
how fast they, you know, came to play against, prime LeBron, making like conference appearances and like I don't know if it was two or like four in the last 6 years, something like I I I don't know these numbers very well. They made a lot of finals appearances under Brad Stevens, um, and obviously him as is the GM now.
Yeah.
Um, but I think he just like was expected of so much, and he was being compared to the Nick Nurses and like even like the Eric Spoelstras. Just like the expectations rose so high that like the only expectation was championship or bust, and I think that's what like it was like for Monty. And I think Brad Stevens had to move up to kind of let someone in fresh. But I think if Brad Stevens were to be moved, from the Boston Celtics situation to, let's say, I don't know, the fucking Magic, it'd be a very similar story, I think, to what's happening right now.
Yeah, I just think, man, yeah, Monty got thrusted into like the echelon of being this top tier coach is just based off of like, not
Like
that
three
he like
seasons.
grinded for it, maybe even just one if you really think about it.
That's true.
Yeah, so oof,
The 2020 season.
the ability to build out this roster is going to be crazy, and I'm excited to see how they function. Next one, shout out to the reverse of this. We got Frank Vogel to the Suns.
Ugh.
And then also in addition, you have David Fisdale coming as an assistant. So the defense is going to be there, but the personnel to have that, not so sure.
I think this fit is just mediocre, honestly. It doesn't really move the ball. I think it's hard to say what coaching style really works for Kevin Durant at this point. Because I'm kind of a firm believer that Kevin Durant is like how a lot of NBA players describe like superstars, just give him the ball and see what he does, Um, kind of how Steve Kerr like talks about Steph Curry. I think it's like one of those things where he's kind of an uncoachable player in a lot of ways. Devin Booker, maybe I wouldn't say the same thing about him. Like I think he has come into his own from good coaching, especially under um, Monty, like we were just mentioning. But yeah, I personally would give this like at most a B, maybe. Frank Vogel does have technically the championship pedigree. Uh, he's got the Le Bubble ring, but
Oh shit.
I mean that you know that being said, he knows what it's like to win too. I just don't think this is really doing much for them. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it's a very lateral move. If I if
Yes.
I were to give it a grade, I'm not gonna lie, I give this shit a C. Because
Yeah.
I
That's
think the infrastructure is there, but just Phoenix with all the news that's been coming out, like even before they got eliminated, and even to now with the whole Chris Paul shit, which we'll talk about in a second, it's the Phoenix Suns, I think from here, they've
Yeah,
come crashing down very hard to say the least. And it's not to say they can't get back there because, like you said, Frank Vogel, he got a bit of that dog in him. I'd like to see more of a Indiana Pacers Frank Vogel who was going to 7 games with the Indiana Pacers, but we'll see what happens here. But I just think with all the noise that's coming out and with no moves being made so far, at least to our knowledge, I think it's a wait and see thing. But right now, it's not looking too good for the Suns.
yeah. Lateral move is a good way of putting it.
Mm.
It's like that John Wall for Russell Westbrook trade,
Oh man,
from a while back. I feel like that was
yeah.
just like some BS.
It was just kind of you're doing shit to be doing shit.
Exactly.
All right, last one.
Yep.
This is for you. Sam Cassell is joining Joe Mazzulla's staff. Feeling about that?
I don't really know how to feel about this. I mean, I don't feel terrible about it. Um, I do think Sam Cassell obviously has had his time in the NBA as a player. Um, and I don't know if it's necessarily translated to a lot of coaching.
I mean, he's
Um,
been an assistant with Ty Lue for the past bit,
right.
so
Yeah. So
I think there's some good stuff to be looked at there.
yeah, like I think he's a well-regarded coach in the NBA. Like I think there's a reason he's been around these bigger teams or the bigger coaches, if anything, like Doc Rivers and Ty Lue. Um, I just think at this point, like I don't know, like a as a borderline Boston, I don't want to call myself a borderline Boston Celtics fan, but I must reiterate this every episode that I am a Jason Tatum truther, and the Boston Celtics are just like something that come along with that. I just think at this point, given based on the playoff appearance this year, that this does not necessarily move the needle that needs to be moved, if you know what I mean. Talk about Jalen Brown, but
Oh shit!
I think that's the bigger thing to be addressed, in my opinion. I don't know how much more time there is with the two J's. That is what I'm saying,
I
and
like how
that
you
will be
put that.
the
I like how you put that.
like I think this is just a precursor to what could happen. Like bringing on a new assistant coach could, I think, incentivize that they'll still play together next season, or it also incentivize that they want to go a slightly different route. Obviously they're keeping on Missoula, and they have every intention to, but changing up the staff a little bit, bringing in someone who knows winning basketball, and maybe that comes with some roster changes, or it
Hmm.
doesn't.
Hey man, let me give you a nugget right here. Can you tell me who Sam Cassell won a ring with?
I want to say he won with Houston, right?
Yeah, when he was a rookie,
Yeah. Um,
he won one more.
2000. Does he have 3 rings or 2 rings?
He has three.
Am I stupid to say that it is the Celtics, right?
Hell yeah, man.
No,
The most
it is. Yeah. Okay.
what's the
I know this
word?
because
It's literally the most ring that's used as like or not an excuse, but you know what I mean. Like, it's something Doc has coasted off of. It's something that the Celtics have used as like some kind of fuel, and I think Sam Cassell is actually like a really big like hire in my opinion. He was
yeah,
on that team. You know, we always hear like Paul Pierce trying to like chime in, Kevin Garnett try to chime in. And I think as great as those voices are and as great as new media has been, I think we still have that kind of that label of media. And not to say that the two J's or anyone on that Celtics team wouldn't listen to them, but I think just having a more closer ear, more closer eyes to the scene kind of guy is something that's going to be a really big help here. I think uh it's potentially a way to show that we're committed to this team. We're right there, and I think we're willing to stick it
That's
out.
true.
So, you know, I'm still someone that's in the realm of split them up, but I think Sam Cassell's potentially a way of showing that you know they're going to continue to coast off of that championship and use it as a way to improve their team. So I think it could be a big thing. I mean, if
I can
Joe
see that.
Mazzulla, if they have a similar outing to how it began with Ime, where they were like really piss poor to begin the season, shit, man, Missoula might be, I don't know, you know, that's like the extreme,
Yeah.
obviously, but shit, yeah, I think this is an indication that they're willing to stick it out with this core.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think they're just double down on the culture setting.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next thing who they need to hire? They need to hire Tony Allen. They need to give Tony Allen a
To
job.
Someone needs to hire Tony Allen, bro. That
Huh.
dude, that dude knows basketball.
Oh, that dude's a dog. But moving on from there, we mentioned the Vogel to the Suns move, how it's a very lateral thing. And one of the things that could be close to happening is the future of CP3. Now, I know like most people are saying they're gonna waive him, but I heard they're looking at like avenues for not even just CP3 but DeAndre Ayton, which is obvious, but it's become a bit more official, I guess. But yeah, first of all, do you think they're even gonna like fully go through with cutting him?
Well, from what I know, they have waived him, right?
I I
Like they
think
waived him.
I think
So what
that's
I've
like what's primarily going to happen, but I think they're going to exhaust all their options first.
right, because I know you can waive someone from your like roster, but because he still has a contractual agreement, he's still being paid by the team. I just don't think he's on the starting roster, if that makes sense. I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's how that works.
I
I
think
don't know. I
it's
was I was looking
fuck.
into this the other day actually.
2K does it where it's like you got a couple days to see if anybody wants to claim them.
Yeah, I don't know actually now. Um, I think either way, I don't think they go as far as to cut him. I think the acquisition of Chris Paul, obviously, it wasn't like the biggest thing that they had to like, you know, trade an arm and a leg to get him, whatever. But I will say they, obviously had him as a key piece or cornerstone piece in making these championship runs the next few years. So I don't think he's getting cut. I think it'd be ridiculous to cut, you know, Chris Paul even at this age. I actually don't know the future of him. Like I wish I could say I had like a answer I could predict. I just don't think he's getting cut, is what I'm saying.
I feel that. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's going to be somebody that bites because everybody's saying the whole what you call it. They're saying the whole he's going to go to the Lakers, but I don't think that happens unless he gets waived. So I think there'll be someone to bite on it, and we'll see. I'm seeing if this can even work, but
Yeah. I do see him go into like a team that could utilize obviously his wisdom because CP3 is next to none when it comes to influencing maybe not the culture per se, but the like sort of I guess IQ in basketball that goes around the court or the
no doubt.
locker room. Like it's like seeing how he showed up in OKC for one random season and fucking brought them to the playoffs
Mm.
practically by himself.
He's like
Like
he's a coach. He's a coach on the court, and I think when you
he
look at
is.
all the players that fall into that, nobody's really as close as him. Man, can you imagine if he goes back to New Orleans?
I think it would be a cool thing to see. I,
Especially
I
with
think
all the wild shit happening with Zion. You see that?
maybe he'll smack Zion to some sense. I don't know. That's what you kind of hope.
Yeah, Zion's been spending his time smacking some other things. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, I think there's going to be a deal made. I think Chris Paul, as much as He's been a liability in terms of health for the past few years. Still very serviceable when it comes down to it. And I think if you have a team that's set up in the way that New Orleans is, where you have multiple, like a good, quite solid amount of scoring options, you got BI, Zion Williamson when he's healthy, and I think Trey Murphy's really coming to his own. That dude's a dog. You put him on that team, and now he really has no other job but to facilitate. I think that could be fireworks. You know, there's definitely some ins and outs to work like into it, but yeah, that could be crazy. All right,
Yeah.
I mean, let's move it on to LeBron to Dallas. Do you think there's even really like validity to it? Like, I mean, LeBron said he'd think of it, but I'm not gonna lie. LeBron to Dallas has more chance of how am I gonna make? Oh, here's the comparison here. LeBron to Dallas could be on the level of CP3 to the Lakers kind of thing, to where you know everything makes sense, but something in the world is going to
Yeah.
prevent it from happening.
I think it's just one of those things that like it's just coming to surface because it was reported. But there's always those interviews of players that saying like, "Oh, this player almost came to this team. This player almost like." I think I saw an episode of Paul George on that. Is it his podcast? Paul George has his own podcast, right? Yeah.
Mm,
He was saying on his podcast on how he almost went to the Cavs, like to play with LeBron. And like, I'm not saying there's no validity in what they're saying. Obviously, the players, but it's just like all this shit could happen, but it doesn't mean it's going to. You know, like at the end of the day, LeBron is not a free agent, and they do not have the assets to acquire LeBron. Like, unless you want Davis, Bertans, fucking who else could be in like
you
eight?
just have to throw all the money into it, and I think
Exactly.
the crazy thing is that LeBron's a guy to where if he wanted to go to Washington, they would figure out something. But
That's
I
true.
think the main reason why I don't think he would, and not to necessarily cut you off, is the whole Bronny's playing in Cali. So
Right.
as rich as LeBron is, as much as Mark Cuban, I bet, would let him use the private jet whenever he wants. There's no reason for him to go.
Yeah. I don't think there's any like yeah, you already mentioned it, but there's no really real validity at this point in LeBron's career in making another move. Like there's not really, in my opinion, another chapter for LeBron. Like he will play with Bronny, it seems, at this point, but I think that's for next season to figure out. At this point, he's not trying to respectfully. And you can see it in just all these videos. You're seeing LeBron play. Like he ain't trying to fucking win no championship. Like LeBron, like you could say he is in a lot of ways, but let's be real. Like LeBron is LeBron at this point. He knows he's done enough to be 1B, 1A, whatever. He passed the scoring record. Like that shit was probably way more important to him than this finals run this year. And I don't think that's like hard to tell based off of his body language in the finals. In like even the last years, like like playoff, they did make the playoffs last year, right? No.
Last year, I think last year,
Oh, it was that play-in game, but
yeah.
they lost to the Suns, didn't they?
No, no, that
Was
was
that
around.
2020?
Whoa. Are we?
That must have been 2021.
We're talking about the year before last, right? Yeah, they lost to the Suns.
Yes, that's
Yeah, yeah,
2021. Yeah,
that
like
was
I
the Suns
remember
round.
I remember his body language even then. He was like, "Man, fuck this shit. Like I don't give a
Oh,
fuck."
come on.
Like,
LeBron was carrying a bunch of fucking bums in that team. You know who was on that team? Andre Drummond.
yo, man, I don't. I didn't remember Andre Drummond being on that team, to
Andre,
be honest.
you can look it up. The biggest meme from that entire playoff run, maybe, or even just that
Andre,
in. It's that you ever see that photo where Andre Drummond's like posted up, like because LeBron's posted up, and he's in his warm up.
I don't think I've
I
seen
don't
that.
know. I think the Lakers. There's just too much cultural relativity, if I'm even using that word correctly, for them to just be like, yeah, I'm just playing the game. I think they're trying to win a chip still. You know,
In
when
a lot of ways, 100%.
I think
I'm just saying,
LeBron's heart gets out of it when the big man that was supposed to take over for him is nowhere to be found. You know,
well, that's all
AD
I'm
had
saying.
140 piece in that round against the Denver Nuggets, but after that, Lord have mercy, he turned into Roy Hibbert quickly. Not to
Yeah,
get too disrespectful, even though that's incredibly
no,
disrespectful. I think the Lakers have an avenue. If there's one thing I'm taking from that, I think it's a big thing that Kyrie's saying, come to Dallas. And, you know, if there is anything to take away from it, I think it's that, you know,
they want to play together.
Kyrie's someone where I don't know how to really take what he's saying into if it's real or not. But that's just to say that, you know, there's a chance that it could indicate Kyrie's willingness to resign if
He
there
could
is
be coming to the
anything.
Lakers.
True.
That's
This
the
could all just be a smokescreen for him to take the vet and go to Lakers. But, you know, we already kind of gave it its shine. Not to say like let's move on from this, but let's kick off to the last bit of the episode. The Team USA commits for the FIBA World
oh,
Cup in the
yes.
Philippines, Japan, and Indonesia. Just to read them off so far: Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, Brandon Ingram, Jaren Jackson Jr., Bobby Portis, and Austin Reeves. I mean, you're shaking your head already, Christian. How you feeling about this roster?
I mean, it's not a terrible roster by any means. I just think it's interesting that Austin Reeves is considered like a commit, as if he's like. I mean, it does indicate that he's like going to make this the starting team, but I guess it's just a matter of who actually wants to play. It seems because Austin Reeves is a good player. Don't get me wrong, but it's like just such an
You're not
anomaly
taking him
between.
over like a Darius Garland or
There's a lot of
you
players I'd take over him.
know.
I'd take like there's even role players I would take over him. You know, like if we're talking about other role players in the league that are American, like it's just I'm not upset about it. You know, it is what it is. But it's just it kind of shows like how much like these USA guys don't necessarily care about this tournament. But I mean, it's a dope lineup. I think it's nice to see all the younger stars like really getting some burn. I think it's gonna like I think Mikal Bridges will be a highlight. I think it'll be like a great morale booster for him coming into the next season.
Hmm.
I think it's gonna be raising some stocks for the next fantasy draft. Um,
Oh
yeah,
man, what round? Not just real quick. What round would you take Mikal Bridges in?
I gotta take him in the second round.
Ah,
Honestly,
that's what I was thinking too.
he's got to be a second rounder at this point. I mean, if he's averaging 30 and giving you 2 steals, 2 blocks a night, that's like all the categories you need.
100%.
And
And
he's for sure getting like 8 boards.
oh yeah, and I think my only gripe though is with this kind of personnel and Mikal Bridges' willingness to buy in when it's time. I hope he still has a role in like creating in this offense, and I think every guy's to an extent might have that ability, but I
Yeah,
want to see Mikal hoop and not just
yeah.
shoot threes in the corner.
I think you make a good point. There's not really a guy on this team, if you know what I mean. Like there's no like
Yeah,
coat like there's not like a LeBron. There's
there's
not a that's the only player I can think of really.
there's no Kobe.
Uh,
But yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
I was gonna say Kobe.
There's no one true dog, but if there's one true dog I
Yeah,
think could emerge here, it's Anthony Edwards, man. I
I
mean,
agree with that
we're
as
we're
well.
seeing a guy come off of if you look to the finals, toughest matchup the Nuggets might have had all their entire run was Anthony Edwards. And he was doing that on like a bum ankle or whatever it was. He was dealing with some kind of injury. And if you look at like again the commits, I think if there's anyone that really has that potential to be like best player in the league type, it's Anthony Edwards. So I think if there's anybody to really highlight the whole being the dog, it's the Ant.
I think people underestimate that Anthony Edwards just has not hit his ceiling yet. Like he I don't know how else to put it. Like I just think he's
I think
going.
the main reason for that is that the Timberwolves are overall, I think, still there's the whole
Trash.
romanticized idea of having Cat and Anthony Edwards, two of like the homegrown talents, but the fact of the matter is that team does not fit in the slightest.
Nope.
I'm trying to see this team rebuild around Anthony Edwards and Jalen McDaniels, if I'm being completely honest. But to get it back to the roster, I mean, what would you even what would you pick as your starting lineup? If you're just looking at this now.
My starting lineup, I probably got to take for fit purposes. I'm probably starting Tyrese at. I'm starting Anthony Edwards, Brandon Ingram. Actually, am I taking Brandon Ingram? If I were to actually no, if I were to make this starting lineup, I'd take Mikal Bridges over Brandon Ingram. I think for the sake of like just the sort of way the ball would move. And then I take Jaren Jackson Jr. and Bobby Portis only because those are the two big guys currently. Uh, I think Brandon Ingram, obviously, in a lot of ways, is like the more reputable player than Mikal Bridges at this point, at least from a scoring perspective. But I just don't think you need that with Anthony Edwards on the floor too. I think you really need to like if I'm talking about a team that could actually work together well, that would be the team.
Mhm. Wait,
Yeah.
can you say it one more time?
So I'm taking Tyrese, Anthony Edwards, Mikal Bridges, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Bob Portis.
You don't just want to go positionless. Here's my starting lineup, which I'm not gonna lie, I think would dick yours. I love Bobby to
Okay.
death, but man, I don't know if he's gonna start on this squad. My starting lineup would be I like Jalen Brunson over Tyrese Halliburton. I would like to see if Tyrese just maybe became like more of a pure six man in the sense of doing whatever he wants. But I can also see Jalen Brunson fitting that. So, but just to be a little different off yours, I do Jalen Brunson, Anthony Edwards at my two, Mikal Bridges at my three. I'm putting Bi at the four, and then I'm throwing Jaren Jackson Jr. at center. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. As much as there was that whole conspiracy with his numbers being maybe a little slightly inflated, the fact of the matter is he's one of, if not the best defensive anchors in the league right now. So give me that.
That's fair. I just think like having McCall and Jaren Jackson Jr. on the floor simultaneously
Oh,
as
that's
a
gotta
defensive
be
unit,
that'd be fucking nasty. Ooh.
like I think I'm a big believer that defense wins championships, Like I do think that lineup that you made is probably the more sensible lineup when you think about like winning basketball. But I do think like there's something about McCall and Jaren Jackson Jr. being on the floor at the same time that would just be more of that mentality. What was that USA documentary called? Like
Oh,
the Redeem Team one.
yeah.
But like I think like it's like kind of gives me more of that vibe of like who's like the best on the floor right now that deserves to be on the floor. But yeah. I would probably like I just want to see someone better than Bobby Portis show up as a five. That was why he was my fill for five,
Yeah, I
because
love Bobby. I think he's gonna be more of like a spiritual
he's def-
leader.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He'll be leading the huddles with his bug eyes.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably gonna get the Giannis assignment if they play Greece.
That's true. That is true.
But yeah, I mean, off rip, just to float this question to you. How do you think this would stack against the Team Canada squad?
If I'm being honest right now, like based on that Team Canada squad, like I saw that one picture of like who is it? It's like Shea, um, RJ Barrett, Wiggins,
Jamal.
Olenek, and Jamal. They're all in like that starting lineup picture. I think that starting five is kind of unfuckwittable
Bro, that's what I'm thinking.
when I'm comparing it to whatever starting five you can make out of this. I just think that guard play is a little too nice. And then I think Wiggs matches up to like, and I'm a big believer in Andrew Wiggins. He kind of matches up to any player that plays a 3-4.
I can see it.
So
I hope Nick Nurse brings him in for the World Cup.
yeah. So, and then I mean, you know, I think center position it kind of fills itself in. Kelly Olynyk is, I think he has his moments in the NBA.
He's a
He obviously,
guy I think he'll bring his play up when it's international play.
yeah,
So a
100%.
lot of guys like that, yeah.
So I think that team compares pretty much 1-to-1 with this team. I don't think it's like, oh, USA is still better. Like I might even say I take Team Canada over whatever you make out of this.
Oh man, yeah, I'm excited to watch this World Cup because I mean I'm not gonna lie. How would they go stop Shea and Jamal if they playing together?
See, yeah, Jamal, like, has Jamal had any like huge international play?
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, he has.
but I think he's definitely been one of the guys. But I think this is just like finally with how Shea and Jamal have been doing. I think Canada basketball is finally getting its recognition.
Yeah, no, that's like one of the dirtiest back. That's probably like high key the best
I don't.
backcourt
Yeah,
duo
I
you
don't
could
know
assemble at this
if you
point.
think about it. If who could the U.S. really make as like their backcourt right
To
now?
match that, no
Yeah,
one. I mean, that's why I would say for matchup purposes, Tyrese and Anthony Edwards could be better.
yeah, that's probably true. As great as JB is.
Yeah, I just think Brunson might get outplayed by one of those players.
Hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, the only way you make this like that lineup, that two guard lineup better is somehow Steph Curry is Canadian at this point. Like
True.
that's the best backcourt duo you can basically assemble, in my opinion.
And man, the potential pieces that could also join the team is crazy. Because I mean, just off rip, you got Lennon Miller coming in this draft. I think there's another couple guys in like these next couple years, but another one. Let me. I'm pretty sure Shaden Sharp is. No wait, of course he's fucking Canadian. I'm wondering if he's like. Never mind, that's stupid. Shaden Sharp, I
Eligible.
think, is a guy where you look in the next few years could be. Whew,
Yeah,
man,
he's got high potential.
Team
Dylan
Canada.
Brooks.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie. The same way Larry Markkinen like rebuilt his career off of the Euro Cup, Dylan Brooks might be able to do the same, man.
Nah,
Shit,
fuck
man,
that guy.
he's fighting for his life. It's 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 America or China at this point.
China can have him, bro.
Damn, you thinking
I
all
don't. I don't even claim Dylan Brooks as a Canadian, respectfully.
Yo,
Not even respectfully. That's just the bare truth. I hate that guy.
damn.
I don't know. I don't hate him. I never hate anyone, but he's he's definitely not on my list of players that I care about.
I damn, that's just so like stab. Let's not even stab someone in the heart, man. Stab someone in the schlong, man. Just unreasonable, unnecessary, or actually maybe not unnecessary, but you know, you thought Larry Markkinen was on shit prior to this year? Do you still think he had the potential to become the play he is right now?
I mean, Larry Markin was kind of showing signs on the Cavs at some point.
No, he's
Dylan Brooks.
not. Come on now.
I mean, I think I just based it off of like how he was doing in fantasy. I just think he wasn't nearly doing as bad as Dylan Brooks.
See,
Dylan Brooks, Dylan
see,
Brooks like
this is the thing
took his
about
team out of the
this is
playoffs.
the thing about categories. Efficiency is cool when it's time to talk about the contract, but you know, you just gotta win the game, man. You know, Dylan Brooks, I would never take him in categories, but if you're just doing counting stats, I might have to swing that. But yeah, I mean, this is just me saying, you know, he's fighting for his career at this point. You know, not to
Yeah,
be the full Dylan Brooks supporter because there is some there is a narrative going on here, but I just think this is his chance to maybe prove to a team, maybe even a contending team, that hey, you know, I can still be a piece.
if he turns it around, stops talking all this shit, maybe I'll support him one day. That's what I'll say. I
Okay.
don't ever stop believing in someone, but at this given point, Dylan Brooks gives me no reason to have hope in him.
Shit. Fuck. Holy. I mean, if Wiggins doesn't play, he's probably like the main. He's probably taking the best player if it's not Lou Dort. If we're being real.
Lou Dort would be a good addition.
True. Lou Dort's definitely going to play, but man, I'm
Yeah,
excited. This is all just to say, this Team USA team is looking alright, but I'm not going to lie. I'm taking Canada over it.
100%.
No doubt. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. Cuzzo, you got anything left to say?
Ni hao, Dylan Brooks.
With that, stay safe, stay blessed. We'll see y'all soon. Back
Back
shots.
shots.